I never imagined that the Homeowners Association's illegal bridge across my land would be my ticket to financial freedom. What would you do if your neighbor's invasion of your property became your unexpected path to wealth? Comment below where you're watching from. It all started on an ordinary morning. I was enjoying my coffee, staring out over my peaceful 3-acre lot in Oak Hollow Reserve. A gentle stream cut through my land, part of the reason I'd chosen this secluded spot 15 years ago. 15 years of double shifts and scrimping had finally brought me here, to my slice of paradise. But that serenity shattered when I noticed men in yellow vests marking the ground along the stream. My heart raced as I rushed down the slope toward them. "Excuse me," I shouted, trying to keep my voice level. "What exactly do you think you're doing on my property?" One of the workers glanced at me nervously. "Just following orders, sir. The HOA approved this bridge project last month." "What bridge?" "Nobody asked me about a bridge." My voice shook with anger. My private sanctuary was being trampled in broad daylight. "You'll need to take it up with MS. Layla Bradford," he said, pointing toward a woman in a crimson blazer at the property line. She was giving orders like a general on a battlefield. Layla Bradford, HOA president of Oak Hollow Reserve, was infamous for getting what she wanted. Her pearl necklace glimmered in the sun as she barked commands into her clipboard. I marched over, property deed in hand. "Layla, there must be some mistake. You can't build anything here without my permission." She barely looked up. "Oh, Colton," she said in that syrupy voice of hers. "The board voted unanimously last month. This bridge connects our community to the park. It will raise property values for everyone. I never got any notice. And more importantly, you're building on my land without my permission. That's illegal." Her lips curved into a condescending smile. "Don't be so dramatic. It's just a footbridge. Why stand in the way of progress? And besides, the stream falls under our easement rights." "No, it doesn't," I snapped. "I have the survey right here." I held up my property documents, but she waved them off. "Construction starts tomorrow," she said. "I'm sure you'll come around once you see how beautiful it is." I stared at her in disbelief as she walked away. Some of my neighbors had been watching the exchange. They quickly looked away when I caught their eyes. That night, I called my friend, Rachel Kim, an experienced real estate attorney. After reviewing my documents, she confirmed what I already knew. "They can't do this. Your deed is clear. I'll draft a cease and desist letter right away." Despite Rachel's letter being delivered the next morning, the construction crews returned before dawn. I stood there photographing everything. Bulldozers gouging into my wetlands, workers setting posts into the soft banks of my stream, and Layla supervising it all with a smug grin. When I confronted the foreman and handed him the cease and desist letter, he sighed. "We're just following orders, sir." By the end of the week, concrete footings stood on both sides of my stream. More neighbors showed up each day, some glaring at me like I was the villain for objecting. I filed a formal complaint with the county zoning board. The next morning, I found angry notes stuffed in my mailbox. "Stop blocking progress. Think about someone other than yourself for once." Layla's campaign against me had begun. Former friends crossed the street to avoid me. Someone spray-painted "selfish" on my mailbox. "They're trying to isolate you," Rachel warned. "Don't engage. Just document everything." I installed security cameras. The footage showed Layla leading groups of neighbors along my stream bank, pointing proudly at the bridge. "The bridge will connect us all," she declared. "No more detours." If only some people weren't so stubborn about sharing. 2 weeks in, I noticed new county surveyor markers on my land, farther out than I expected. I hired my own surveyor. His findings made my stomach drop. "Your property line extends another 12 feet beyond where they're building," he said. "They're encroaching more than they realize." Armed with this information, I went straight to Layla's house. "You're not just trespassing, you're deep onto my property," I told her, showing the survey. "Surveys can be interpreted differently," she said, her tone tight. "This community needs the bridge. If you weren't so new here, you'd understand how things work, ignoring property rights." I replied coldly. "The board voted," she said. "Construction continues tomorrow." She slammed the door in my face. That night, I got a call from a woman named Julia Ramsey, a county environmental inspector. Your stream is part of a protected watershed, she told me. Any construction requires special permits. They have none. Can we meet? I asked. The next day, Julia confirmed what I suspected. Layla's project was a legal disaster waiting to happen. I now had leverage. At dawn, I watched as Layla popped champagne with her cronies on my land. To community progress, she toasted. I stepped outside, filming. What a lovely surprise, I said calmly. I wasn't aware I was hosting a party. Layla's smile didn't falter. You should join us instead of fighting. Did she tell you about the protected watershed violations? I asked the group. They glanced at one another nervously. Layla flushed. Don't listen to him. I'm documenting everything, I said. You're trespassing. Today's celebration. My attorney will be fascinated. That afternoon, I found my tires slashed. Rachel filed for an emergency injunction, but Layla had friends in high places. Judge Barlow delayed our hearing. Meanwhile, crews raced to finish the bridge. One night, an unmarked envelope arrived. Inside were photos of past homeowners who dared defy the HOA. One who moved after constant harassment, another whose house suffered unexplained water damage. I was wide awake when my phone rang again. Is this Colton Green? A man asked. I'm Mason Walker with Ridgeview Development. That bridge might be worth millions to the right buyer. Explain, I said. Meet me tomorrow. Mason slid documents across the table at our meeting. The township has been desperate to connect their trail system. Your property is the missing link. The bridge gives them everything they need, but only you can grant access. I left with a plan. Rather than fighting the bridge, I'd let them finish, then cash in. Back home, the workers doubled their efforts. Layla seemed suspicious of my new attitude. You're bluffing, she accused. Maybe, I said. Did you clear things with the Army Corps of Engineers? Her treasurer paled. I spent the next week building my case. Julia documented the watershed violations. County inspectors confirmed the lack of permits. Layla had even lied to her own board, claiming I'd given permission. As the bridge neared completion, I heard whispers of a grand opening. Then, a panic call from Martha Lane, one of the more reasonable board members. Layla wants us to sign something transferring liability to us. Don't sign, I warned, and show up Saturday. Saturday was a spectacle. Layla cut the ribbon. Local news was there. But just as she raised the ceremonial scissors, county officials arrived with stop work orders. Layla froze. I stepped forward. Let's find out who really controls this bridge. Days later, Layla's lawyers sent me a ridiculous letter threatening countersuits if I interfered. Rachel laughed. They're scared. That evening, Layla appeared at my door. Alone. We can make a deal, she said, sliding over an offer. $25,000 for an easement. Try a few more zeros, I replied. The township values my land at millions. You won't get HOA approval to sell, she snapped. I don't need it, I replied. Your bylaws don't block sales to municipal governments. My phone rang. It was Daniel Moore, the township manager. $7 million, he said. Final offer. Layla's face blanched when she heard me accept. Over the following weeks, everything unraveled for her. The environmental fines were staggering. Homeowners rebelled. Layla was forced to resign. At the final HOA meeting, I stood before my neighbors. This was never about money, I said. It was about respect. I accepted the township's offer with one condition. $700,000 went into a conservation fund for trail maintenance and wetlands education. 3 weeks later, I signed the papers. My 3-acre sanctuary became the Oak Hollow Nature Preserve. The illegal bridge was removed and replaced with a proper one. On my last day in Oak Hollow, Eleanor and the new board president, Ted, handed me a framed sign. Oak Hollow Nature Corridor, where community and conservation meet. Established 2025. Made possible by a generous donation from Colton Green. I blinked back tears. Layla appeared then, her pearls dulled in the fading light. I was wrong, she said quietly. I should have asked permission. We all make mistakes, I replied. The important thing is learning from them. As I drove away, my new beachfront condo waiting for me, I realized the bridge they built to walk over me had instead lifted me higher than I'd ever imagined. And there wasn't an HOA in sight.